The planet Aetheris was a world shrouded in eternal mist, a place where the veil between the physical and the ethereal was dangerously thin. It was the home domain of the Specters, a race of beings who viewed physical matter as a crude, primitive inconvenience. The Specters did not have solid bodies in the traditional sense. They existed as coherent fields of semi-corporeal energy. They could walk through a foot of reinforced steel plating as easily as a human walks through fog. They could phase their hands through a soldier's high-tech armor and squeeze their heart until it stopped, all without ever fully entering the physical plane. To the human expeditionary forces trying to establish a mining foothold on Aetheris, the Specters were a nightmare. They were fighting ghosts. Bullets passed harmlessly through their shimmering forms. Lasers were refracted uselessly by their ethereal fields. Explosives just blew around them. The human soldiers were terrified. They were dying in locked bunkers, killed by enemies they couldn't touch, couldn't stop, and often couldn't even see until the freezing cold grip of death was already on their chests. Phantom Zux, the leader of the Spectre war host, watched the human panic with cold amusement. He floated through the solid duracrete wall of the human command center, his form a swirling vortex of pale blue mist. "You build walls of stone and metal to keep out the wind," Zux whispered, his voice echoing directly inside the minds of the human officers. "You hide inside your little boxes of matter. You do not understand that matter is just a shadow. We are the light that passes through the shadow. You cannot fight what you cannot touch." He drifted toward the base commander, reaching out a translucent hand to stop the man's heart. The commander fired his sidearm point blank. The slug passed straight through Zux's face, embedding itself in the wall behind him. Zux didn't even blink. "Pathetic," Zux hissed. "Your tools are useless here. Leave this world, creatures of dirt, or become ghosts yourselves." The human military commanders were ready to retreat. They were fighting a war against magic and they were losing. But down in the bowels of the base, in the screaming noise of the power generation sector, Chief Engineer Sparky Okonnell had a different theory. Okonnell wasn't a soldier. He was a man who smelled permanently of ozone, axle grease, and stale coffee. He didn't believe in magic. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in physics and he believed in the god of heavy industry, electricity. "They ain't ghosts, kid," Okonnell growled to his terrified apprentice, wrenching open a panel on a massive fusion generator. "I don't care what they look like. If they exist in this universe, they're made of energy. And if they're energy, they've got a charge. And if they've got a charge, I can ground them." Okonnell had spent 3 days rewiring the base's entire power grid. He wasn't routing power to the weapons or the shields. He was routing every spare gigawatt the reactors could produce into the air itself. "They think they can just phase through anything because nothing has enough energy to push back," Okonnell muttered, chewing on an unlit cigar. "Let's see how they like it when the air is thicker than a brick wall." The Specters launched their final assault. Hundreds of them drifted silently through the outer perimeter walls, bypassing the sentry guns and the minefields. They headed straight for the reactor room, intending to phase through the core and detonate it from the inside. Zux led the charge, gliding through the heavy blast doors of the engineering bay as if they were made of smoke. "Foolish materialists," Zux sneered, seeing Okonnell standing by a massive lever bank. "You cannot bar the path of a Spectre." Okonnell looked up from his console, his welding goggles reflecting the pale blue glow of the approaching ghosts. He grinned, revealing yellowed teeth. "I ain't trying to bar your path, Casper," Okonnell shouted over the hum of the turbines. "I'm just turning on the lights." He threw the main breaker. The crack. It wasn't a sound, it was a physical blow to the eardrums of everyone in the base. A massive electrical discharge, channeled through thousands of hidden emitter coils in the walls, floor, and ceiling, instantly ionized the air in the entire engineering sector. The room didn't just light up, it became a solid block of screaming blue and white lightning. The air crackled with so much static electricity that hair stood on end inside helmets 3 rooms away. And the Specters, they screamed. It was a sound that defied description, a psychic wail of pure agony as their semi-corporeal forms were violently assaulted by billions of volts of raw energy. The electricity didn't pass through them, it latched onto their energy fields. It disrupted their phasing cohesion. It forced them to obey the laws of physics. In a blinding flash, the translucent, ghostly figures were brutally forced to materialize. The pale blue mist solidified into gray, leathery flesh. They fell out of the air, hitting the metal deck plates with heavy, sickening thuds. They were suddenly, terrifyingly, solid. Zux tried to phase through the floor to escape the agony, but he just slammed his newfound physical face against the steel grating. He was trapped in a body of meat and bone, paralyzed by the electrical current coursing through the room. What have you done? Zux gasped, his voice no longer echoing in heads, but coming from a physical throat, weak and trembling. We are heavy. We hurt. Okonnell stepped down from the control platform. The air around him was still arcing with lightning, but his heavy rubber-insulated suit protected him. He wasn't holding a high-tech plasma rifle. He was holding a 4-foot-long cast-iron industrial monkey wrench. Behind him, his team of grease monkey engineers emerged from cover, armed with crowbars, sledgehammers and lengths of steel pipe. "Welcome to the material plane, asshole," Okonnell said, hefting the wrench onto his shoulder. "Down here we have this thing called kinetic impact." The battle of the reactor room was short, brutal and entirely one-sided. The Specters, horrified by the sudden reality of having physical bodies, had no idea how to fight. They were used to stopping hearts with a touch, not dodging a swing from a 20-pound sledgehammer. Okonnell walked up to the materialized high Phantom Zux, who was trying feebly to crawl away on limbs he didn't know how to use. "You said we were creatures of dirt," Okonnell grunted, standing over the fallen alien. "You were right. And we know how to use it." He swung the wrench. It connected with a very solid, very satisfying crunch. The Specter threat on Aetheris ended that day. The remaining ghosts fled back into the deep mists, terrified of the species that could turn the very air into an electric cage. They had relied on being untouchable, on being above the crude reality of physical matter. But humanity had proven the ultimate industrial HFY truth. There is no magic that cannot be disrupted by sufficient voltage. You can be a ghost, a spirit, or a god, but if you step into our house, you play by our rules of physics. And if we can't touch you, we will build a machine that makes sure we can. And once you can be touched, well, we have plenty of wrenches. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. If it bleeds, we can kill it. If it doesn't bleed, we'll shock it until it does. If you enjoyed this shocking victory over the Ghost Army, hit that like button. Comment below. What's your favorite example of science beating the supernatural in fiction? Subscribe for the next conquest of Saga 11, The Titan's Toil. The power is on. The ghosts are solid.